Welcome to what's probably my favorite area of the software, and that's the job pricing calculator. Now, the job pricing calculator, think about it. We've already created a complete model of your company. Once we've done that, pricing jobs becomes very simple. I know that many of you have more complex job pricing systems, but the bottom line is, how accurate is that in line with the model that we just created in here? Right? Remember, we're doing things from a cash flow perspective, not an accounting perspective. And so the job pricing calculator will make sure that you price your jobs out profitable every time. Now, again, go ahead and continue to use your existing job pricing software tool if you want, but then come back here and just verify what's the actual net profit we're going to wind up with on that job after you've paid all the bills. So let's dig into the software tool itself. Again, we're going to find that under Jobs and Job Pricing Calculator. Now, again, you'll see that each of your departments is going to be listed right up at the top, and you need to select a department that you're going to use for pricing out this job. And it's important that you select your department because that's the overhead structure it's going to use when coming up with the pricing for your job. So I'm going to do a price out a job for my installation department. I'll click on installation, and really this whole left-hand side of the chart here is what we're going to be filling out. And so I'm simply going to walk down this list and fill out each of these items. So the first one is job name. Now this is the Jim Smith job. Plug that one in, tab down. How many hours to complete the job? So this is going to be total man hours. All right, so let's say we've got 2 guys, 2 days. That's 32 man hours that we've got on that particular job. So I'm going to plug in my 32 man hours. Next, what are my total materials cost? All right, so don't worry about, I know some in your job pricing tool, you likely have one markup for equipment, another one for parts and supplies. Don't worry about that. What's the total cost, your cost of all materials used on this job? And so I'm going to say in this case, it's $5,500 is what we have for total material cost. Do I have any subs on this particular job? I've got $120. Put those in. Now, under materials markup or margin, that's pulling right from your materials entry screen under the cost input section up here. Right? So if you entered in materials for this department as in this case, it was a 30% margin, that's what it's going to pull up here. Now you can change it, but that's what it's going to start out with and pull up here. If you use the markup, it'll say materials markup, right? Same thing with subcontractors. It's whatever you used when you entered in subcontractors under the cost input section. That's what it's going to default to and start out with. So once I have those parameters set, and I'm not going to change those two, that's my typical margins that I use, I'm simply going to click on calculate right here on the blue bar. So when I click on calculate, a couple of things are going to happen. So down below, I can now scroll down, and it's going to give me, for this one, my current. You'll find somewhere under status, under current, you're going to find your current labor rate. Right? So in this particular case, to hit the numbers that I was shooting for, right? And I'll even scroll back up here to the top. You can see that in my particular case, in this department, we were working at $35 per hour was my target to hit my model. And so that current will always be at that same rate, in this case, $35 per hour. It's going to tell you right here is your job price. At $35 per hour, using the material margins or markups that we have in here, I would charge $9,127 for this job. If I do that, that will net me $1,792 on the job. And if I move over here, I can see that that will give me a net profit of 19.64%. And so it's telling us what that job is. Now, here's the other thing. I can also see on there, right down here under status, break even. It will always tell me what my break-even rate is for this job. So in this particular case, don't worry about the labor rate, because what you see here, it's actually a negative number, minus $21. It means there's enough markup in the materials to actually generate enough gross margin to cover my cost and then some. Okay, so that's why, again, it's calculating backwards. Don't worry about the labor rate. What it's telling me is that my break-even rate on this job is $7,334. If I need to sharpen my pencil, I can go that's how far down I can go and still cover 100% of my costs. Now remember, we're talking cash flow in this case. So when we're talking about your break-even rate, that means that you've been paid as the owner. It means you put money aside for trucks. All of your bills are paid. You just don't make any money. In fact, here I see my net profit, zero, right? So it's going to cover all of my costs. That's the absolute rock bottom price I can go on this particular job and still cover my cost of operation. So that helps you when it comes time to get competitive on a job. So always see those two numbers. Now, the other thing in here is you'll notice that, okay, this job came out here at my target rate of 19.64%. That's higher than what I'm shooting for. As a company in this department, I'm shooting for 15%. Now, you can say, well, 19, that's pretty cool, right? I like that. But the problem is you can price yourself right out of the job, right? So if I'm looking for a 15% net profit, again, we've actually listed the dollar amounts, $20 up, $20 down below my target rate in $2 increments, right? And so I can go in there and look at, I'm looking for a 15% net profit. Yeah, 14.86 is right there, right? So I can simply, go up and down here to hit the profit target that I'm looking for, right? So I'm going to say 14.86. I'll come over right here. That's basically this line item right there. So I could really, at that point, sell this or quote this job out at $8,615. That will still give me $1,280 in net profit dollars after I paid all the bills, after I was paid the whole bit. Right now, one of the things that I can do, so that tells me, okay, where I want to quote that job at. What I want to do at that point is you see the radio buttons here. I want to actually select the radio button that corresponds with the price that I'm going to quote that job at. All right, so I'm going to quote it right there at that $8,600 price. Once that's done, I can now, down here in the lower right-hand corner, I can hit the save button, and it will save this job in the database. So you can come back to it later on. Right? Previous versions of the software, you couldn't save it. It was just a calculator. Now you can save that job here in the tool, in the tool itself. So we've just gone ahead, we've saved that job that's there. Now, if I just simply at any point, right, I'm just going to refresh this screen so I go back to zero, right? So all my screens are blank. I can bring that job up simply by, again, selecting my department. And again, you have to select your department first. And then what I'm going to do is you'll notice right here we've got View Jobs. So when I click on View Jobs, it will now give me all of the open jobs that I have for that given department. So if I didn't select my department, I'm going to see other jobs that are there, right? So I can simply look down the job name for this one. And this was the Jim Smith job. There we go, right here. Right, that's my job itself. All I need to do is come over to the right-hand side for that one, hit calculate, and it will bring all the data up for that job right back here, including the actual price that I quoted the job for is marked down here. So I see that one is in there, it's set, ready to go. Now, the next thing that we can do, and this is one of the really exciting parts of this software tool, is the left hand, or the right-hand side of the screen. Get my rights and lefts together here. Right, when I look at the right-hand side of this screen here, now we have some job costing available to us. Once the job is done, I can now come back here, bring up this job, and I can see, okay, I thought I was going to make 18.5% net profit on this job. How did I actually do now that the job is done? And so one of the things that you can see is I can come in here now and say, okay, how many hours, right? So the first question is how many actual hours were used on this job, right? We had the job, it was originally quoted at 32 hours. Let's say the guys actually took 35 hours to get it done. We're going to plug that one in. Next, what was our actual materials used on this job to complete it? The original job was $5,500, but for whatever reason, we ended up using $5,400 worth of actual materials on this job. And what do we have for subs? We have the original 120 that we thought. Enter in those three values here. And at that point, I can now click the calculate button one more time. And when I do that, it's now going to tell me exactly what was my net profit at the quoted price for this job. Right, so we ended up this job. The actual net profit was 14.16%, And that gives me $1,219.79 in actual net profit dollars. Again, let's say on this job, they did use the full $5,500 in parts and materials. All right, I hit calculate. Well, okay, in that particular case, because of the fact that we went over on hours, we didn't hit our 14.8% net profit that we were shooting for. We actually ended up with a 13% net profit, which gave me $1,119.54 in net profit. So again, I can always use this tool and find out, number one, what should I price the job at, right? And again, if you're using another software tool to do your job pricing, come back in here, throw in the parameters. How many man hours do you have into it? What's your total material cost, right? What are your subs if you have those? Crunch the number. Then all you need to do is come back here and find out, okay, my software tool is telling us that we're going to bid this job, right, at, whatever, $8,000, maybe it's $8,447. Okay, if that's the case, then, okay, that's putting me at a 13.8% profit, not the 15 that I'm shooting for a company. So you can always validate, is my pricing in line from a cash flow perspective? Now, again, even on this case, I can take and save that job. It will now save even those net profit calculations that I just did right here. Now, there's one other item that I want to cover in this tutorial, and it's that, let's say on this particular job, I've got, let's say my materials, right? So all I'm going to change is this one item. Still have 32 over here, 32 man hours in total time, but instead our materials are 15,000. Right, is what we've got on this particular job. I hit calculate, and now when I go down to my target of $35 per hour, I can see that's giving me a price of, over here, I'm at a 26% net profit. Well, again, odds are I'm going to price myself out of that job. On this particular job, we'd be looking at a job that's almost $23,000. And that's going to be a bit of a challenge in a lot of markets. And so what I can do, like I said, I can go up and down in $2 increments to find the price, the profit level that I'm looking for. But even on this job, when I come all the way down to the bottom, the lowest I can get here is 23.68% net profit. Still too high, right? And then the next line down is 0% net profit, that break-even line. So how do I deal with that one? Well, remember, when it comes to materials and material markup, I don't care. I can either raise or lower the labor rate, or I can raise and lower the material markup. Either one will help me lower that price. So the easiest way to do this is to simply come back up here and say, okay, on my materials, I'm not going to put a full 30% markup on this job. Instead, I'm going to put a 20% material margin in there. Right? I can just change that number, hit calculate again, and now I can see that my net profit percentages are now back in line. If I'm shooting for 15%, well, there's 15.1% right there, right? So that would be the point where I'd be quoting that particular job, right? Be right there, $29 per hour. My sell price on that job, $19,828 is what I'd be looking for. And so that's where I could then mark that particular job. Now, remember, I can either raise the material markup to increase that net profit, right? If I do the exact same thing, instead of $15,000, let's say there were only $500 in total materials. All right, at $500 in total materials, now you can see my net profit numbers. In fact, my $35 per hour at that point is below my break-even rate. I'm losing money on that job. So I need to increase the profitability on this job. And when I look over on the net profit side, the highest I can get is 7.8%. So all I need to do at that point is I'm going to take my material margins and I'm going to kick that up, right? Let's go to 50% material markup. See if that helps me. All right, hit calculate. And by gosh, here we go. All right, there's 14% right there. Right, I can now see that we're pretty close to our 15%. I'd quote this job now at the $2,718, and we're good to go. That's where I would mark that one. So use that material, the materials markup or margin, to either increase or lower your price to get it into the profit targets that you're looking for. As long as you get the job done in the number of hours that you thought you were going to in your proposal, you will make that kind of money. If If you got any questions, feel free to reach out to us here at Grandy & Associates. Otherwise, enjoy the tool.